This is another Wheel of Time reaction and analysis. This time we're looking at the Shadowspawn clip released. I believe it was released on TikTok. And it's just a short clip in which Moraine narrates over some shots of Trollocs and Fades fighting and pillaging. And what Moraine says is, armies of Trollocs and Fades, millions strong, will wash across the land, killing and eating every person they find, and you can't outrun a Fade. Which I think is just a great, quick sort of synopsis of what the Shadowspawn, at least the Fades and the Trollocs, are as the Dark One's army, and what a threat they are, and what sort of type of threat they are. Now, I want to do two things up front. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about what I'm trying to accomplish with this channel. And then I want to talk a little bit about the nature of some of the content I'm gonna discuss with regards to Shadowspawn. So I've done a few videos now, and I feel like the strongest video I did was on Moraine's quest, where I did a little bit of background into what goes on in the books, and then I talked a little bit about my own sort of takeaway from some of the content and some of the books and what we're seeing, and kind of gave it my own spin. And I think that'll be what'll offer anyone viewing this channel value, is just being honest about my reaction and my thoughts, because I know I can speak intelligently or semi-intelligently about what's on my mind. And that'll give people, that's the only thing I can really offer that's unique, is my own sort of take on things. And I'd started doing this video on Shadowspawn, and then I realized that I needed sort of an angle, or not really, angle might not be the best word. I needed my own reaction, authentic reaction to it, that would allow me to talk about a 1.5 minute video for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, however long these are going to be. So I'll try to do that here with this video, is just offer my own, what I know about Shadowspawn, since that's the topic of the video, and what I feel about Shadowspawn, I guess would be a good way to put it. How I feel. How do I feel about Shadowspawn? And another thing I just wanted to mention is that some of the conduct of the Shadowspawn in the books, I shouldn't laugh, is NC-17. And I think it comes back to Robert Jordan's real experience as a real soldier in a real war. War is hell, and there's a lot of horrible things that the Shadowspawn do. They torture, they eat people. The Fades rape. The Fades are rapey. So be warned that we'll be talking a little bit about that. All right. So what the Shadowspawn are is the armies of the Shadow, the armies of the Dark One. They were created during the War of the Shadow by Angenor. I might have to look that up, but I think he was the original architect and engineer behind the armies of the Shadowspawn, who created the Fades and the Trollocs and all the other Shadowspawn that we are going to meet down the road, which opens up a lot of interesting possibilities about, and I don't want to talk too much about the Age of Legend, because that gets into hard spoiler territory, and I want to be careful about this. But the idea of bioengineering soldiers to fight in a war, I find to be pretty fascinating. I think it's probably more commentary on the conditioning our own soldiers go into to go off to war, because the Trollocs and the Fades are they are hybrids of humans and animals. I won't get too much into the process of how they're created, because that's spoiler stuff too. But the Trollocs and Fades come from the same place. I think it's a fade is like 1 in 100. The Trollocs are just humans who have animal parts. They have, or I shouldn't say just, they're monstrous, large creatures with, some of them will have bull horns, some of them will have bear's faces, beaks like a giant bird, wolves, just all sorts of predatory and animals, or fearsome animals. I guess bulls aren't predators. And then the Fades are eyeless, pale humanoids. They're very interesting. They can travel through shadows. They don't cast shadow, and their cloaks don't move with the wind. They ride undead horses. They carry black blades that are forged in Thacander, which is at the foot of the mountain where the Dark One is imprisoned. I can't remember the name of the mountain. I will keep obviously wanting to call it Mount Doom, but that's not the name of it. They're poison. If you're cut by a blade of a Midril, you die. The Midril have a lot of names depending on where you are. Midril and Fade are the most common. I believe they're also called a Lurk, which is a name for vampire. The Neverborn is what Perrin's wolves call them. The Ale, I believe them called them Night Runners. There are other names, maybe Fetches. They're eyeless, are what they're known as. And I've seen a lot of depictions of them in different fan art. The one I like the best, and I'll try to find it for this video, is that has it more gives the Fade a little bit of hair and has him wearing more common clothes instead of the black cloak. He's wearing, like, clothes that are a little more in style with what humans are wearing. And one of the things in the books that they say is that the Fades can pass as a human if you're not looking too closely to them. And we're going to run into that in the series if they stay true to the books, where we find out Trollocs and Fades can sneak into a city without people realizing that this is a bunch of Shadowspawn. So if you don't look too closely at them, they sort of blend in. And there are other Shadowspawn that do that as well. Subterfuge and obfuscation is a tool of the shadow. But for the series, I think they're going to keep them more fearsome looking. And certainly when we're running into them in the wilderness at night, they're not going to be taking steps to sort of hide their true nature. They're going to be frightening. So I want to talk a little bit about Moraine's description, where she just flat out says that these things are going to kill and eat every person they find. Now, that's what Trollocs do. They boil humans alive and eat them. They don't eat them alive, but they throw them in the cook pots alive, and that's there's lots of different bands of Trollocs. They don't get along with each other. They usually fight each other, and it takes a Midril coming along to get them, to keep them in line. And the Trollocs can actually be more dangerous if they don't have a Midril. The Midril psychically links with the Trollocs, and if you kill a Midril, you'll also kill the 20 or so Trollocs it's linked with. The title that a human who kills a Midril gets is Dreadbane. It's something we find out later in the books, because not a lot of heroes and warriors we meet in the early books are up to the challenge of facing a Midril one-on-one. They're that deadly. Even Lan, I believe, hesitates to face one alone. So my point there is they're a very serious threat. The threat is real. They do some real damage to the heroes in the early books and throughout the books. They're strong antagonists. One of my favorite scenes in the later books is from the point of view of some dark friends who are traveling with Trollocs and a Midril, and the Dark Friend that's leading the war party is feeding the Dark Friends to the Trollocs one at a time, and they actually want, if they can choose their fate, they would rather be killed and eaten by Trollocs than given over to the Midril, because the Midril is just so horrible and what he does. It's pretty dark, and the depending on how they handle it, and based on this short video and the line of Moraine, it doesn't seem like they're going to shy away from it too much. I would compare it to, if you've watched the show Firefly, to how the Reavers are presented, and how, if they board the ship, we've got to kill ourselves, because the living would just be too horrible after that. That's the Shadowspawn. And, Jordan isn't too descriptive with his gore, and he doesn't write torture porn. However, he doesn't shy away from it either. There are definitely some characters who usually Dark Friends, who we find out meet just a horrifying end. The character Bors ends up pissing off some of his Forsaken masters, and you hear about what they do. It's not to fail. To fail as a Dark Friend, it's not. They don't kill you. They keep you alive and make your life a living hell. They do it to a lot of different characters. I don't want to name all the characters, but definitely the bad guys get what's coming to them. And the Shadowspawn are usually just as deadly to the Dark Friends as they are to people who walk in the light. It's not the series is not very kind to its antagonists. They all meet one gruesome fate after another. So we've talked about the Trollocs. We've talked about the Myrddraal. I'm trying to think of if I can remember anything else. I still don't really feel like I've given anything that you can't look up on Watt Fandom. We find out a lot more cool things about Shadowspawn as the books go on, especially once we get up into the Blight. There are different types of Shadowspawn up there, and there's some of the Shadowspawn we never see again. Like, there are worms in the Blight, like the type of things you'd see in Doom, but we never see them. We hear about them, but there's other terrifying monsters, and they again, these are weapons, so they fulfill different purposes. You've got your infantry, you've got your artillery monsters, you've got your infiltration units, you've got your air support with the Drakkar. And I think I'm going to stop it there, because I'm scraping sort of the bottom of the barrel of what's coming to my mind about Shadowspawn. Moraine, Rosamund Pike seems like she's the right choice to be sort of the narrator for all this early media. It all seems to involve her, and obviously she's the biggest name associated to the project. But you can hear fear in her voice when she's talking about the Shadowspawn. So she's clearly all in on playing this character, and I think the strength of her performance will carry the early part of the show. And I think the people behind the show see that, and that's why they're featuring her so heavily in the early media that we're going to be seeing, that we've seen so far. So that's it for this video. Please like and subscribe to the channel. As soon as we get some more Wheel of Time media, I will get another video out. So thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.